I'm Stephen from Auto Night. Welcome to another video. I'm back from my travels in the US, back to the grey skies. So I may have seemed quiet for a while, but behind the scenes I've been collecting parts for the Smart and clearing up the aftermath from the recent storm. Yes, that was my fence. But it's all beautiful again now. But back to the reason why you're actually here, the Smart. It's back. This little beast had been safely stored in my friend's garage, but I couldn't work on it around there, so I've brought it back home. Wires everywhere. Let me explain. The battery was fairly discharged on this car, and as you may have seen in a previous video, the area under this carpet where the battery lives was absolutely filthy. So I took the battery right out and I got it into my garage and I got it on charge. What remains of the wedge? About a third of it's missing. I do need a new one of these. But here it is, fully charged, and as you'll probably agree, the whole area is a lot cleaner, as there was all sorts under here. There was also this bird's nest of wiring under here, and I've disconnected this. I've never been a fan of these sort of connectors, these little crimp-on things, and I believe this wiring to be for the parking sensors. The parking sensors that I don't think I need on a car this tiny. I also don't like the way they sound. They sort of remind me of a dying cat. But the strange thing is, I've disconnected this, but it's still working. Maybe it can't be killed. The other wiring that was under there was this, which is a little extension, which means you can charge the battery without lifting up the carpet. Again, there were more of those blue connectors, so I've redone this in a slightly more professional manner. And these little bits here are on standby for when the inline fuse arrives, because I want an inline fuse in here, and I've got one on order from Amazon. So in today's video I really want to remove this, find out where it goes. I mean, I don't like the way it's wired in for a start. I mean, you can see it. It's actually visible between the carpet here and this trim. And I'm assuming this is the wiring for the rear parking sensors. Maybe I'm completely wrong, maybe it's something else, and maybe that's why they're still alive. But I'm gonna follow this back. In fact, looking up here, it re-emerges here. Oh, I was wrong. How strange. There's another charging point up here. Why would it be up here? That is weird. We don't need two of them. Okay, let's pull this through and get rid of it. I don't need that there. Now, the main driving force for wanting to remove those parking sensors was because that wiring looked such a bloody mess. Now that wiring turns out to not actually have been for the parking sensors. I'm going to leave them be for the time being. And this whole area is now as nature intended. The next thing to look at on this car today is this panel here, this driver's side front wing. There is some damage here and a great big crack here. I did show this in the introduction video. And I've got a new panel here from Smart, already pre-painted in the correct colour. It's just this offside front wing. It's upstairs in my house, where it's safe from damage. So I need to get this whole front section off, and then I can examine what's behind here, because I'm slightly concerned that right behind here, there could be some other damage. There's a little deformable section, like a little crash box. It is sacrificial. It's designed to be replaced after a small knock. I want to make sure that nothing behind here is damaged, because if it is, naturally I'm going to replace whatever is damaged. You've got a crash bar across the front. There's also some foam blocks that live behind here, and they sometimes get damaged because they're the first line of defence. So I really want to see what's going on under here. So that's what we're going to do now, is get this front off. And the very first thing to do is to remove these side skirts, because there's a fixing right behind here. You then just pull back. And it's released. These little retaining clips are notorious for breaking, and they just screw onto these preformed studs on the sill here. Little bits chip off them, especially in cold weather like today. And for this reason I always buy new ones. You'll get some pedants that will say, oh, you don't know how to remove the trim if you break them. Well, come on, get real, they break. Looking at all this, I think it's fair to say that these haven't been off for a very long time, if ever. And I think you all know me well enough by now to know that this will be immaculately clean when I put this back together. Now the side skirt is off, this gives us perfect access to this T25. And we'll do the same on the other side. This little strap secures the bonnet to the slam panel, and this T25 screw frees it off, so the bonnet can be completely removed. And while we're here, let's remove these other two T25s that secure the painted front panel to the vehicle. There are two further mounting points on the top of the wings each side here, also T25. Most of them are. There are a few exceptions, however. This is the wrong screw this side. It's not meant to be this long, but I think I've got spares. We need to go inside the car. There are multiple positions that these can be fitted in, which is quite strange. I think it's for alignment purposes, but this is on the lowest. And we need to get this little triangular trim off here. As is often the case, this aerial mast is seized into the base. Very common. I made a video on this. Link will be in the description below. So this cannot be removed probably without breaking it. So I'm not even going to try. Because with care you can bend this aerial forward slightly and still get this off. We do the same on this side. I note that on this side of the car, this is in the middle hole. This may change, however, because we're fitting a new wing. Behind these little trim triangles, you've got another T25 here. This one secures this scuttle trim to here. And we also have this T30 here, which secures the panel to the actual Tridion of the car. It's important not to lose this little sleeve as well, because this prevents crushing of this panel as you tighten the screw. It creates the correct distance. And finally, just under here, there are a couple of things to unclip. One each side. The front panel is now technically free from the car, and it is just a case of removing it. You have to remember that we need to disconnect the wiring to these indicators, and because I can't remove this aerial from its base, I will have to lift this up over the actual aerial mast itself, which is a little bit of a ball ache, but it's possible. It's quite easy to just pull this wing out and then we can disconnect the side repeater. It's just a push and twist arrangement. It's a good time to change these bulbs as well, because sometimes the yellow coating flakes off. And here we go, it's off. It's that easy. And with the front panel off, I can reveal the really grubby mess behind. This will all be cleaned. And I'm going to inspect this all very carefully. It's good to see that these are still in place. these foam blocks. There's no damage to this crossbeam. This little collapsible section here is okay, as is this. Now this side is a slightly different story. I think there has been some slight damage to this front panel from the impact of that wing, so it wasn't just the outer panel at all. I can see immediately that this headlamp has been brought forward with some extra spacer washers that wouldn't normally be there. There's a couple there, there's a couple there too. A little bit of damage here. Now I did notice that this is slightly deformed, very slightly up here, and there's a gap here that shouldn't be here. This fixes directly to the front panel, and the front panel itself fixes directly to that little collapsible structure that lives behind there. It is sacrificial, it's easily replaceable. I'm wondering if that's moved back slightly, but I'm going to have to look further into that. Either way, this is not a structural part of the car. I mean, you can see how easily it moves, therefore how easily it could be deformed. I'm figuring that worst case scenario I might have to replace this, but I'm sure I can do something with it. This is not proving a cause for concern at this point. So we're here with the front panel section now, and this is the side that's damaged. It really is now just a case of separating this off from the remainder of it, and it's held on here, here and here. There's one missing here, and I need to look at this front skirt as well. I think there might be some distortion to that. I'll see if I can do anything with it or if it needs to be changed. But before I get too bogged down with any of this, I want to clean the front part of the car, because no panels are going back onto the front of this car until that's really clean and I've inspected everything properly. Now curiosity has got the better of me, so I'm going to remove this bolt under this offside headlamp and have a look and see what's going on behind there. This bolts directly into that small collapsible section. Removing this bolt hasn't really given me much in terms of any movement. In fact, it's given me absolutely nothing. So I'm just going to whip this headlight out to see if it gives me a bit more visibility. You can probably already hear my brain working. This is unacceptable. It is free. I still can't really see if there's any impact damage at the front here. I think the best way to do this would be to take the other headlamp out and measure the distance between here and here and just see if we've got any difference. At this rate, this whole car will be in pieces by tea time. Far too many spider webs for my liking. Where there are webs, there are spiders. And the advantage of stripping this all out is that, of course, it will make it easier to clean and clean more thoroughly. Let's get this bolt back in and then I can measure these both accurately. If we first measure this side, which is deemed to be unaffected, we're dealing with 204 millimeters. And moving across to the side with the damage, we're looking at 197. So we've got a difference of around 7 millimeters from side to side. And that could just be enough to push this up just a few millimeters and all of this back. I'm just going to order this from eBay because I have found one and it's not expensive. The design of these little collapsible sections is such that they're generally weaker at the front and they get progressively stronger as you get closer to this, so they give way progressively. And they're very good at doing what they do because they protect the main structure, the main Tridion of the car, from impact damage. I mean, if you end up with these crushed up but everything else is okay, and these are like 20 quid each, what's the big deal? It's interesting to note that we had a 7mm difference between this side and the other side, maybe 8, and these were fitted between the headlamp and this panel to create sufficient clearance so the headlamp aim was correct. and that the headlamp would align with the rest of the car. I'm just going to measure these now, just to see what the distance is here. Because if that's around 7mm, then that just explains everything, doesn't it, really? 6mm. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I like explanations to things. So what I think I'm going to do is leave this video kind of around here, because I need to get that part on order. It's probably going to take a couple of 3 days to arrive. Then once it's here, I can strip it down and get that fitted, and that should bring that front panel section back into alignment. So what I will do in an upcoming video, a very satisfying video I think, is get the Karcher out and give this all a really good clean. I'll seal off the headlamp wiring for the time being, because it might rain, because I'm not going to get the front back on today. I'll just leave it off. What I'll do is I'll seal these up, maybe put a glove over that and a cable tie, same the other side, and then I'll get this all cleaned up properly, and once this part arrives we can get that fitted. Should pull this forward, should solve that problem up there, because that's connected to that, and then the headlamp can go back in without those washers. That's the plan. I'll also clean under here because it's filthy. Get rid of all the impacted mud. Check for corrosion, but I don't think there'll be any. So that's it for this video, probably the last for 2024. So finally, I would like to say a massive thank you for all who have followed my channel, subscribed to it, bought me a coffee, and engaged with me in the chat. It's been a great year. 2025 will be even better. I'd like to wish you all a happy new year, and I'll see you again soon.